And on December the 26th of 2016, I have over 70 lesions on my body. I'm completely covered in stuff. And I can tell that I'm about to die. 3 days prior, I had thrown out my drugs. And I scream out to God. I'm like, show up if you're real. And my friend comes running down the hallway. And she says, Nicole, the house is surrounded.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
What's up, Nicole? How are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's not waste any time. Why don't you take it from here?
Well, my addiction started with a knee injury, but obviously I'm from the South, and I like to start with my childhood because I had a really great childhood. My family, if they're guilty of anything, it's loving me too much and celebrating me and everything I did too much. It was almost not realistic for the real world. I'm an only child. I was completely spoiled rotten. And I just went through life a complete breeze. And because things were so easy for me, I didn't have any coping mechanisms when I got out into the real world. And when I was 20 years old, I got pregnant with my 24-year-old son. And even though it wasn't planned, like I was ready to be a mom. And I had a really long-term relationship in high school that I left. And when I got pregnant, I was with somebody that I really honestly did not know that well and realized I did not need to be with. It was really like my first bad decision. But here I am pregnant. I had this completely spoiled lifestyle, and I decide I'm going to do this by myself. And I go get 2 jobs. So I'm working like 13 or 14-hour days. I'm just minding my own business one night, and I go to take a step, and the floor was wet. And I go to like switch my body weight. My kneecap goes to the back of my leg, breaks into 3 pieces, and cuts the inside of my patella tendon to shreds. And they've got to rush me to the hospital. And I was broken for around 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks after I gave birth was my first operation. Here it is. I don't have coping mechanisms at all. I don't know this yet. And I'm a single mom. And it just kind of, my addiction starts right here. My starting dose was OC80s, 2 a day.
Whoa.
They don't do that anymore. They send me home with a Dilaudid pump. I had Percocet for breakthrough pain and Ambien to sleep. In the beginning, I didn't even take my medicine like I was supposed to. And what I mean is I didn't even take the prescribed dose. That is really high. And so for the longest time, I managed that way. Me and my little boy learned to walk together. It was years of therapy for me. I think it was a total of 12 operations before it was over. To give you a little bit of background, like I've never smoked a cigarette. And I rarely drank. I didn't even realize marijuana was in my city. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. And now I am taking pills because I'm in so much pain. But the very first time that I kind of went into a withdrawal, I didn't realize I was withdrawing. And I think this is an important part of my story. My prescriptions were waiting for me at the pharmacy, and I thought I had the flu, so I didn't go pick them up for 2 or 3 days. And I'm just sitting here getting sicker and sicker. So my mom comes by, and she wants to go shopping, and I'm like, well, I don't feel good, but I think I'm going to go with you, but let's stop and get my medicine before I go because I haven't had any couple days and, whatever. And I remember I took the pill, and within 30 minutes I was fine. My mom noticed it. She said, baby, you're not even sick anymore. And I instantly went into fear. Like, wait a minute, was I fiending? Like, was I like sick, dope sick? And I don't even think I knew the term dope sick at the time. This was around 2003. So, and I just remember going into instant denial. Like, oh, that's not it. But in in my recovery, accountability is everything. And that is definitely, I was physically dependent, no doubt. And when my little boy was 3, his hair started to fall out. He has a disease called alopecia universalis. He's hairless, like the cat on Austin Powers. Like, we're cool with it now. We have a good attitude about it. But you've got to understand, like, this is my son is my life. And now his hair's coming out and he's going to be different. And I can't even stand to see a stranger being made fun of. Now my little boy's going to be different and he will be made fun of at one point. And I didn't manage long. I look back on it and I've looked at my son and I've said, I'm sorry that I let your condition take your mom from you. I should have been stronger, but I wasn't. And I'm sorry that I got hooked on these pills that turned into an IV drug addiction. But I just couldn't cope with the idea of it. It hurt too bad. And one day we were in Walmart and this whole family was like staring at him and pointing and everything. And it was Christmas time. And I took the buggy, like, and just crashed it into, those Oreo cookie, like, castles they make at the holidays.
Yeah.
Like, I crashed. I'm like, now you've got something to look at. Leave. Just cussing them out and everything. And it was bad. And I came home that day and I opened up my medicine cabinet that was full of opiates. And that was the first time I took something because I didn't want to feel anything. That's where it starts. Like, I'm a functioning addict. I graduate from aesthetic school. There's a lot of movies that are filmed in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I'm working as the lead esthetician for El Dorado Casino and then Millennium Productions movie sets. I'm living in a $250,000 house, but I'm taking like up to 40 pills a day and nobody has a clue. I'm eating Percocet 10s like they're Skittles. I'm now on Xanax and I'm functioning. And I just have this tolerance that I think saved my life. And everybody thinks I'm this powerhouse of a mom when I'm crying myself to sleep at night eating pills. And things are starting to kind of unravel. And there was a guy that I haven't seen in 8 years. At one point, he was the most wanted man in the state of Louisiana for pharmacy robberies. And I needed pills. I knew that he would have the connection. It's safe to say that his family are organized. They call it the Dirty South for a reason. I remember watching him approach my vehicle, and I knew that this was a bad idea. Like, I knew it. But I like to tell people the devil does not show up looking like a monster with horns. The devil shows up looking like everything you think you want. And I fell madly in love with this man. It was an addiction. And I think deep down I did have an ulterior motive. It was kind of like that Bonnie and Clyde idea. I like to joke and say, drugs make me break out in bad taste in men and felonies, but it's very true. The Harley Quinn and Joker, you start to romanticize. The Bonnie and Clyde, you start to romanticize. And he was a very good looking man. So why not? And the one thing, even though I didn't have self-esteem, the one thing I always did have was I could get anything I wanted from a man. Like, I just was smart with it and stayed in relationships, if that makes any sense. So I knew that I could have him, and I was stupid enough to think that it was going to work out. Like, just blindsided to this. My life changed the day that he met me on the roof of that boat, and it goes fast from here. I lose my job, and he's coming over to my house and everything, and he leaves my house one night and gets called up on a probation or a parole hold. So he has to do 11 months. And this is the first time I hold him down. I lose my job, but I've got a lot of savings. You know what I mean? I was financially well off and I had gotten that settlement. And for a woman in 2005 to say 2010 that's making a minimum $5,000 a week, like, I had it, you know what I mean? So I had savings to build off of, but I'm putting money on his books. I'm putting money on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting here like talking to him all the time and living off of what I had, which is not going to last forever. And in that 11 months, we decided to get married. And he wants to have a baby.
Mm.
I knew better. You know, my father is very big in my life. My father's my hero. And there was no reason for me to have, quote, daddy issues, which is how this turns out looking, you know. And he gets out in August. It was August. Hot summer night at midnight. I'm at the prison gates thinking this is such a romantic story. I'm waiting at prison gates for him to come through. But you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't tell me at the time that it wasn't some, you know, gone with the wind love story that's going on. And I'm waiting, and it, you know, at first, what people don't understand about domestic violence, which is a huge part of my story, is they don't just act like jerks in the beginning. They do everything right. Um, he was very intelligent. I like intelligence, so we would have these in-depth conversations. So by the time you're like in love, it's almost too late. You're gonna go through something. You know, you're gonna feel pain and you're gonna hurt. And you know, I didn't have a clue what was in store for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty severe. My parents found out that we eloped on Facebook, and everybody in my hometown knows who this man is. So, like, that's why I didn't tell my parents, because my daddy would have chained me up to a chair somewhere. Like, no, you're not going to marry this dangerous felon that was, you know, that was the most wanted in the state of Louisiana. You know, he would have stopped me. So that's why I didn't do it. You know, I didn't tell
Mm-hmm.
anybody. And within 3 to 4 weeks, I'm pregnant. So the one thing that I did correctly was 2 months before he got out of prison, I got on Subutex and weaned down. So when he got out, I wasn't on anything. I really did believe that he was going to change. I
Mm-hmm.
really did believe that we were going to have a future together. So the one thing I did right was I did not use during my pregnancy. But I'll be the first to tell you that I was not happily sober. I could not wait to use. It was miserable the whole time I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
He is an IV drug user. And I lost my big, nice house. I lost my big, nice SUV. I lost everything. And putting it on his books and spending it on things while he's gone. And now I'm pregnant and married, and he's getting high. And it was February the 14th, Valentine's Day. I was 5 months pregnant. We had spent some time on the phone, and I dropped the phone. And in 2010, remember when you dropped your cell phone, the back would come out and the battery would fly out, and you had to put it
Yeah,
back
yeah.
together. So you know, it's taken me a minute, right, to get my phone back together. And I call him back. He doesn't answer. He had a job at an oil company, and I thought he was actually trying. I hear the car pull up, and I think, oh, it's my favorite holiday. He's come home to surprise me. He comes in through the front door, and he picks me up by my throat, and he beats the snot out of me for the first time. Never in any moment of my life did I ever think I would put up with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was the strong, like, you're not going to treat me that way. As I said, I could get what I wanted from the man that was in my life. You know, like I was the one that was in control.
You had the power.
Never. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And never did I think I would put up with that. And I was pregnant and scared. And I wish I would have left. And I didn't. What people don't understand is you're addicted to this man. Like, you're addicted to this person. It happens to men. And I thought he loved me so much. He just couldn't control himself, and prison had ruined him. And I pitied him. I had no self-worth. And he made my pregnancy miserable. I don't like saying this, but I say it. I went to the doctor for my checkup with pregnancy, and they checked you for STDs, which I'd never had. I've always been very smart with my body. Like, I just didn't sleep around. And they came in and told me that I had chlamydia pregnant. And
Mm.
I know if I go and tell him that, he's going to beat me to death. He's going to say I cheated when I didn't. So I came up with this story that I had a bad urinary tract infection and he needed to take this antibiotic along
Mm.
with me. And my life is falling apart. My oldest son is 11 at the time. He is seeing the abuse. He adores his stepfather. He thinks he hung the moon. That becomes a problem later. And it's getting nasty, and there's a lot of black eyes that I'm covering up. And finally, when I'm 8 months pregnant, he gets arrested on something to do with parole, but the charges don't stick. But he does have to sit for 3 months. You would think I would have been a little bit relieved, but I wasn't. Like, I thought, now I've got to give birth alone again. Like, this is the
Mm.
number, so the second time, you know? And so I wasn't doing well with my health. I think it was the stress and everything. I remember them having to take me in for the C-section, and the look on my mom's face as she sat there behind the curtain, like they're fixing to cut her daughter open, and her daughter's husband is incarcerated. And they don't know that I'm being beat. He's isolated me, and I'm making excuses not to see him so much, and, covering everything up. And they were trying to support the situation that he was going to change. And because the charges didn't stick, they were trying to support me and be on my side because my mom and dad are not married. They're both married to other people now, and they have been for 25 or 30 years. But the four of us will have Christmas together still.
Mm.
My parents did everything to make sure that I had the best life. So there was no drama or anything like that. So I've got this supportive unit, and they don't know what I'm going through behind closed doors. So I remember waking up in the recovery area, and I feel this little hand in mine, and it's Colby. He's 11. He's like, "Mom, we're gonna be okay. I'm gonna take care of you." I just remember thinking, he's 11 and he's seen his mom get beat up, and he wants to take care of me. I had a C-section, and I took them 40 perks that they gave me for that C-section in probably a 2-day time span. I
Mm.
instantly go back into not feeling anything because, see, before I didn't have any trauma. I just lacked coping mechanisms. And then my little boy loses his hair. I can't cope with that, but there was no trauma.
Mm.
Now my husband cheats on me. He beats on me. And every time he leaves the house, I don't even know if he's going to come home. Whether he's spending the night with a woman, he's overdosed, or the police have gotten him. That is no way to live.
Mm.
Bonnie and Clyde is crap. Go find your Johnny and June. Like, this Bonnie and Clyde it's oversold and it's crap. And people don't want to talk about how they died in a shootout in my state, my home state. It didn't
Mm.
end well. It's nothing to glamorize.
Mm.
And he came home to me a mess. He knew I was using. He knew I was eating pills. He says that he wanted to change, and it's my fault he didn't. I'm gonna call crap on that because he still hadn't changed, and I don't have
Mm.
anything to do with it. I've been removed from the situation a long time. So when he comes home, it's instant. Like, he makes it maybe 2 weeks before I catch him shooting up. And I've never used a needle or anything like that. I don't like to get into a lot of war stories. I like to talk about, what I've done in my recovery. But
Mm.
the needle, for me, with him, it was a connection that I had with him because it was him who pierced my skin the first time. And I just didn't go back after that. My son was 6 months old. I mean, come on, who waits until they're 33 years old to do that? I mean, at this point, we're living out of somebody else's apartment, and my first felony was with him. I think I'd been shooting up 2 or 3 months. They kicked the door in. He'd stolen from his best friend, stolen diamonds. Basically, I was an accomplice and didn't even realize it. Did I know he was out there stealing? You better believe it. But I didn't realize what he had done. So I'm terrified, that morning. Here it is. I've never even been pulled over for a speeding ticket. And now I've got guns drawn and I'm standing there. They called us at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got a sheet wrapped around me. Like there's no clothes. I had no clothes on. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I remembered the world slowed down. They let us ride in the back of the cop car to the facility. And I just remember screaming how much I loved him, and he's screaming he loves me, and they got us cuffed. We're barely dressed, and I'm thinking like this is such a they're tearing us apart. It's just so ignorant when you look back on it, but it was a big deal. And my daddy, I don't sit but a couple hours. My daddy comes and bonds me out. My father will look you in the face and say that's the biggest mistake he ever made because I just didn't take it seriously. And he gets released. It probably takes me 2 weeks to come up with the money because his bail is way stronger than mine. You know what I mean? Because I've never been in trouble. I'm just doing everything I can to get him out. He is still beating me. The infidelities are still going on. And in 2013, he beats the snot out of me for the last time and goes and robs a Waffle House. I should have been relieved, like once again, but I was devastated. I was completely devastated. He got sentenced to 6 years flat time, which means no good time. You're doing every single day. You know what I mean? You're doing all of that. Like you can't no classes, no whatever. You're doing the whole entire 6.
Oh.
And I was just gonna wait this out. But the one thing I knew I couldn't do was keep up with my habit. And when he got arrested, I'm homeless at this point with 2 kids. When I'm talking to him on the phone, I'm like, look, I'm not going to leave you, but you haven't been faithful to me the whole entire time we've been married. I've never cheated on you once. You're about to sit for 6 years. So I'm hanging out with this guy that I'd also known my whole entire life, and you can deal with it because I've got I'm out here with nothing. And I had completely been isolated from my family, and my family's not stupid at this point. Now they know something's going on. They're suspicious of abuse, but they definitely know about drugs. And I've taken off. I'm in a hotel, and they are looking for me from my children, and they are correct. I am not. I'm not fit. And at first, it was so bad. I told the hotel that I was staying at, I said, if anybody calls and asks if I'm here, say no. And the morning that I heard the knock on the door, the hotel door, um, my son was at school that day, and my oldest, Collins, was 2. And there was a police officer there. I had finished out my probation. I only got 1 year and finished it out. So it was like I wasn't in any legal trouble yet. And I remember like having to handle my child over to this cop and looking downstairs and seeing my mom stand there. And she's sobbing. Like they didn't want to do that to me, but something needed to happen. And they believed with all their heart that I would go to rehab because of this. It wasn't to be hateful. And what people don't understand is when you're in addiction, you're not dealing with your child anymore or your mom anymore. You're dealing with the substance.
Mm-hmm.
I believed that I would die without that substance. I believed I couldn't live without it. The withdrawal was just so severe. Mentally, I was broken, plus the abuse. Now I've got all this trauma. I'm shamed. You know what I mean? I come from a great family. I have a college education. I've got all these things that there's no excuse for this, basically, is the point that I'm getting at. And I'm so shamed, and they believed I would go to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
But I died that day that they took Collins out of my arms. Instead of thinking you need to live for your kids, I just thought I'm just going to give up. Like I didn't want to be dead, but I didn't want to be awake, if that makes any sense. I did not want to be conscious. Before it was over, I was actually injecting in my face. I just didn't want to be awake anymore, so I'm homeless on the streets with my boyfriend. My mom is responsible for felony number 2. I was going and picking up her Xanax from the pharmacy. When the detective asked me about it, I had used my own ID to pick up her medicine. So, of course, when the detective comes to my door, I'm like, yeah, I did that. I used my ID. I called my mother a junkie. I said, she's a junkie and she's just mad that I got her pills. That's what addiction will do to you. My
Yeah.
my mom, who would still to this day lay down and die for me. I looked at that man and said, my mom was a junkie. And he just had to investigate it. So I called and checked the warrants every day until I had one. And then I went up to Cato, checked myself in, and then bonded out within an hour. I just take off and I'm an in-state fugitive now. I'm not checking in with my probation officer. I've overdosed probably around 8 or 9 times, but 2 different times I've flatlined. I've been dead a total of 7 minutes, 3.5 minutes each time. Within minutes of being taken off of a vent, walked out of ICU in a hospital gown and ran across a highway to get to a phone. That's how bad off I was. I went several years without seeing my children or my mom and my dad.
Mm.
And on December the 26th of 2016, I have over 70 lesions on my body. I'm completely covered in staph. 240 pounds. I don't realize that at the time. And I can tell that I'm about to die. 3 days prior, I had thrown out my drugs. I kept my Xanax, and I had a friend that was not on drugs. I said, just help me get through the withdrawal because, Subutex withdrawal from a high level like that, it's tough. Plus, you have seizures coming off of the bars. I said, just help me, but I don't know what's going to happen when we get to day 3. I couldn't ever get past day 3.
Yeah.
Day 3 hits, that's December 26th. And I scream out to God. I'm like, show up if you're real. Show up if you think you can do something. Show up if you think you can fix this, and I won't argue with you. But I'm going to die. And my friend comes running down the hallway, and she says, Nicole, the house is surrounded. And I'm like, really, God? This is what you're doing. I've since learned, he has a sense of humor with me, so if I ask for something, I better be sure about it.
Mm.
But I'm an in-state fugitive, and I don't know that I have got 37 counts of simple burglary. But
Mm.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, how did this happen? Like, what is going on here? And he had been arrested, and he had told the cops, because technically I was the bigger fish, because I'm still married to this big time criminal, and I'm still going
Mm.
up to the prison to see him. And of course he did that. He sells me out to the police, and he's like, I'll tell you where she's at. So when they're asking me about these burglary charges, I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, no, and I just said, I need an attorney. I don't talk. I didn't believe that he had ratted me out. Did not believe it for 1 second. He saved my life, and I'm okay with that. Um, the withdrawal process was a nightmare, but it built me.
Mm.
It built me. I laid there in complete kidney failure in ICU at LSU as an inmate, ankle shackled to a bed, sicker than I've ever been in my life. And all these emotions start coming to me. I haven't seen my children, I haven't seen my parents, and I'm so sick. But for the first time, I'm accepting what I had done to myself. I'm
Mm.
looking at my body, my perfect teeth that I had. He had busted my jaw and broke my teeth out on this side, but the Subutex had started to rot them. They're all broken. They're not white anymore. My hair is past my bottom and matted. I am the epitome of this, just disgusting. And I talk one of the nurses into taking clippers and cutting my hair off because it was too tangled. And she helped me shower and shave. And I just remembered laying there saying, you're going to feel every single moment of this because you did this to yourself, and this is where it ends. This is where you get up. This is where you pick yourself up. And I think I had over 17 seizures. I still have scars on my ankles from where the cuffs from seizing, you know what I mean? They would just like cut into me. And I had absolutely no idea that I would be sentenced to 5 years in the Louisiana State Penitentiary. I was thinking I would maybe sit for 6 months or something. They were not playing with me,
Mm.
but I didn't care. I had asked God to not open the doors until I was ready to be productive and to have everything back.
Let's take a quick break here, read off today's sponsors, and then we will start talking
Okay.
about some recovery.
Okay.
Okay, EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based, medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering with substance use disorder. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has announced its path for the pursuit of self-government. As an MNS citizen, I am proud to see my government fight to protect my rights. This is our moment. To learn more about the treaty and our path to self-government, go to ourmoment.ca. Wellness News Choice for Healthy Living is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or skwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. Pine Lodge, the treatment center I went to 7 years ago when I got sober, offers inpatient addictions treatment and aftercare programming in Regina, Saskatchewan. To inquire about services or make a donation, call 306 510 1891. To make contact or to learn more about today's sponsors, to check out our merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are also in the show notes below. And we're back.
Okay.
So, that sounds, I don't even know what to say about what that sounds like. To go from, being raised in such a wholesome way, so to speak, not wanting for anything to end up shackled to a bed in kidney failure and seizing.
Ew.
Did you gain some clarity early on? Like when did the light start to come on for you after that experience? Like after you became perhaps medically stable, so to speak.
My dad had been calling the facility because he had the app to where if I ever got arrested, he would know. They were praying for that. He had been calling. He knew I was arrested, but I was in the hospital, so they can't tell you that when you call the facility because of escape reasonings or whatever. So it was around 3 months before they put me in general population. They popped the door, the cell door, and they were like, "It's time. You got a visitor." And I'm like, "What?" And I remember approaching the glass in a jumpsuit, with my hair in these crazy looking braids. And it took almost 9 months for the abscesses to heal. All the other inmates made fun of me and they thought I had AIDS. And I see my dad on oxygen. And I just thinking, why is he on oxygen? While I was on the street, he was diagnosed with alpha trypsin deficiency, which is one of the rarest lung diseases in the world, and had been given 2 years to live. And I'm on the other side of a glass. And he looked at me and he said, "Nicole, this is your chance to get it together. And I want my daughter back. And I'm going to help you every minute that I can while you're in here. And in hopes that when you get out, you're going to make the right decisions." And I was so grateful and so scared because he looked so sick. I went back to my cell and I told God I wasn't asking for me. I said, "Please don't let him die while I'm an inmate. I deserve it, but he doesn't. So help me." And my life starts to come back together after that moment. I know that my family's on board. And I started my life in prison with the Bible. God picked people like me to walk with him. People forget that. Every single one of his disciples were criminals. They were bad
Yeah.
people. He needs people like us for the testimony. So, I started this walk of faith after being down about a year and 10 months. My mom I'm talking to her on the phone every morning at 9 a.m. I'm looking forward to this phone call with my mama. I'm running to the phone and we would talk for 20 minutes. And my stepdad, he said, well, my sister, so my Aunt Donna, was in Mississippi and ran into this little church lady named Gloria. And there's a place for you to go in Alexandria, Louisiana. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just want to go home and be with my kids. I get released from prison at 4 o'clock in the morning in the end of 2018. I get baptized 48 hours after leaving prison. I get the Holy Ghost in this woman's arms.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the baptism pool with me. And 2 days later, I crash into her son in the hallway of the church. And he said, "You're new here." And I said, "I am." And he was like, "Wait a minute, is your name Nicole? My mother is Gloria." 6 months later, we were married. That is my husband today.
Hmm.
Like I said, I met my mother-in-law first. I was baptized and she was there. She's the reason I'm in this city.
Hmm.
And her son is my husband.
That's
And oddly enough, my husband was addicted to methamphetamine, and I'm 2 months longer sober than him. So I like to pick on him, and I'm like, I went to prison, you went to rehab. So
yeah.
like, I'm the tough one. And we wanted to open up a sober living facility. Our big dream is a rehab. We're
Hmm.
both published authors. So that's what we do. We are in the prison and we help teach reentry, but we're also in the streets helping addicts. And we're a little controversial
Hmm.
because it's not that we don't believe in meetings, because we do. There are people that really they really rise. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really helps them.
It
But
worked for
there's
me.
also
It
people out there, I just can't,
No,
like,
no, it's
I,
fine. You speak your truth. It's funny
I
because
yeah,
the conversation, when somebody starts talking about this topic, they always start out the same way. I have nothing against meetings. They work for a whole bunch of people. There's always a but, and then it's just like whap.
first off, I'm not going to disrespect somebody else's higher power, but higher power doesn't work for me. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm a Jesus delivers chick,
Hmm.
and it's Jesus for me. And I got in the Bible and rose from the ashes. And it clearly states in scripture that you are to not to fear anything. You're to want for nothing. And I applied scripture to my life. So why in the world would I lean on the world when the
Hmm.
world is what got me homeless and covered in abscesses? I
You know,
need nothing.
that is very contrary to a conversation I had yesterday. I had a guest yesterday. I did a recording, and he said the exact opposite. He's like, I don't lean on anything that I can't touch that isn't real. I don't lean on a higher power because I don't know that there is one. I know that there are people, and I lean on them. So it's interesting that you say that exact opposite thing, and eloquently put, by the way. And I'm not here
Thank you.
to say who's right and who's wrong. I'm
No,
just
I
saying
don't
it's like
get offended at
I
all.
love the diversity of the conversations that are happening lately on my
Well,
platform.
we're about to get diverse. I The thing is with me is I literally every single time I walked into a meeting, which I had to because I went into a women's shelter the first couple months, when I met my husband. So like I have to go by these rules that
Hmm.
that the house makes us do, which is meetings. I'm sitting there and the guy gets up and he says he's been sober for 17 years and he's been coming here. And that was the most depressing thing I'd ever heard.
Hmm.
Because you see, I didn't get sober to sit in a room every day and talk about it.
Hmm.
I don't need to do that. I don't even like going over war stories, but I will touch base with it to show where I'm at today. And then I started experiencing this cult like behavior from this group telling me that I would relapse without this.
Hmm.
And they're obsessed. Okay. And I'm like, okay, the only big book I need is the Bible. And on the front page of the big book, it says that this is how we recover, meaning that you can. And I personally think that Bill W. would be very upset with the program today.
I believe you're
That,
right.
that there's
You know, the problem with the program is that people got involved. you know,
exactly,
so and not everybody
exactly.
is wrong. I do know many people who use the program in a very productive way and who are very
Yes,
open and
me
on
too.
it. However, I can't disagree with you that there is a
See,
lot of
right.
things going on that shouldn't be.
I've got good friends that swear by meetings and go to meetings, but they're open-minded and it worked for them. They
Hmm.
realize it's not just the meetings. So like I hear what you're saying. Like I've got really great friends that swear by it, and those people are okay, but my media is large. So every single time I make a video where I say I'm recovered, the oh my gosh. You want to talk about that's impossible? Okay, nothing is impossible. I've been
Yeah.
dead twice. I don't question whether there's a heaven and hell. I feel I've been to both. The first time I died was pleasant. It was a pleasant, safe feeling. The second time, darkness and screams, and I'm running through darkness.
Mm.
They like you're talking to somebody who's, some people might say, oh, well, that's just the mind or whatever. I know I've had too many encounters. I asked God to save my life. He did. He showed up in the form of police. And when I
Hmm.
got out of prison, my teeth are destroyed. Okay, I look like a gargoyle. I've got no problem saying that. I had all my teeth pulled out of my head. I think 8 of them had to be cut out because they were broken off at the root. Wide awake with
Mm.
nothing but ibuprofen. I had worship music on in my earbuds while they were pulling my teeth out. Now, of course, I was numb, but most
Mm.
people get put to sleep, you know what I mean? So they don't remember it.
Yeah.
And I have found that when my walk with God has turned me into a powerhouse, I have beat many odds since. When Jesus was hanging on the cross, what he spoke was, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The men that beat him, forgive them. So if he can forgive in that moment, who am I to not forgive myself for what I've done? Who am I to not forgive my enemies that have harmed me? If he can forgive still bloody, and my life is covered in that blood, I don't have to identify as an addict for the rest of my life. And I will not identify as, I have no problem talking about my past, but that's not who I am today. And I don't have to live like that. And there's scripture to back that up. Um, And that's just how I feel. A lot of people don't want to have to go to a meeting. Like, if I would have gone to a meeting high, I would have been like, no, I get sober for this because it's just not my thing. Like, I don't want to
Hmm.
do this forever. So, we are applying what we know works for us. And God, like, you're looking at somebody who's nearly been beat to death. She's had her head stomped. She's overdosed. She lost her kids. And I've completely rebuilt my life. I have anxiety and PTSD like you wouldn't believe. I don't take anything for that. I pray. It
Hmm.
works.
Do you give all grace to God?
No,
Hmm.
because God could not have saved me if I wouldn't have asked. You got to meet God halfway, man. It's not Make a Wish Foundation. It's not some dude up in the sky granting wishes for people. Man, this is work.
It's a
Okay?
relationship, just like any other.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
many people out there that give all grace to God, and I think that's not fair. We have to not only recognize the gifts that are being presented to us, but we have to take action. Like nothing in this world is
Yes.
free. So hoisting the cross is hard, and that
It
deserves some
is. And
credit.
it's like my son, I've been sober for 8 years. My youngest son, I just got custody back four
Mm.
months ago because who was I to go in and tear him from the only home that he knew? Okay.
Mm.
I don't get to do that because I decided to get it together. I let him choose. Like I did a number on myself. And because I seek God every single day and I put the work in every single day and we work together at this, it turns out okay. So I like when people are like, "Oh, what are you going to do when something happens?" I laugh at them. Like, really? When are we going to go over when it started happening? Because
What do you mean when something happens?
like I have
Hmm.
days where I can't walk across the room because
Hmm.
I'm in so much pain and my hands are 10 times bigger than they're supposed to be. I can wake up 10 pounds heavier tomorrow or lighter depending on the fluid because of my kidneys.
Hmm.
And I just thank him for it because I know the answer will come and I'm stronger for it because I can't be high. It makes me mean. Pills make me not care about nothing. I don't worry about nothing. I will cuss you out and don't care if I hurt your feelings. I don't want to
Hmm.
be that person anymore.
Hmm.
And, I've had 2 surgeries in my recovery and I've had to take IV, you know what I mean? They'll push it while you're in the hospital and literally had worship music playing the whole entire time. And then when they removed my gallbladder, they sent me home with 10 Lortab. I took 3 of them. We flushed the other 7. You know what I mean? I had surgery. I couldn't just not have anything. I
Hmm.
get through enough without anything, but surgery was surgery. But I didn't even think about relapsing. In fact, I threw my guts up. My mom was dying laughing. She was like, I can't believe it made you sick. And I was like, I don't think my soul wants it. It was like
Yeah.
my soul was just throwing it up. Like it was so disgusted with it. And I just
Hmm.
won't go back. Like I won't.
Hmm.
And I deal with a lot of pain on a daily basis.
Hmm.
And it can get brutal, but knowing that my little boy is in there and I get to take him to school every day, and knowing that I'm married to a man that worships the ground I walk on, and the only thing he loves more than me is God, and I'm so well loved and taken care of, and to know that I have this life, the one that I dreamed of initially before the mess, is worth it to me. So I'm not going to cry about the fact that sometimes I can't walk, you know? Like, I'm not going to cry that it might take me 30 minutes longer to make my son's breakfast because my hands are so big. I'm not going to get depressed about that.
Hmm.
So then that's how I live, and I love helping other people and showing, hey, recovery's possible. Because anybody who's been in the trenches of addiction, you feel so hopeless. You know what I mean? Like people don't understand. Like if you've never had an addiction and you're listening to this, if the person's already addicted, they're not out there having the time of their life. They're not. It is prison. It is the worst type of prison. But if you love an addict right now and you think that they're having the time of their life, you're wrong. They're suffering. They're suffering so bad and they're so miserable and they feel so worthless. They need love. You need tough love at times, but you just can't look down on people because people are like, oh well, that's their fault. Well, my addiction wasn't my fault. I'm gonna tell you that. You know,
Hmm.
eventually it became my fault. But let's take it deeper. My husband did a line of meth for the first time, and he said instantly the world made sense, and he was an addict. But do you think that other people haven't made a mistake? Like people cheat on their spouses, people make mistakes every day, and they don't think that they're going to have to answer that mistake every day for the rest of their life. There's not a single person out there that hasn't made a mistake, but addicts, we're stuck with it. Oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well,
You're right.
yeah, of
You're right.
course.
I
Yeah,
shouldn't
of course
have.
we shouldn't have done that, but an addict has to live with their mistakes stamped across their forehead, and that's not right.
Hmm.
And that's why I fight for people in addiction, because I will never forget how it felt to be alone. You know, I have trauma from my family cutting me off. Were they
Hmm.
looking for me? Yeah. But there's no handbook to this. They did what they thought was right, and I don't care because the outcome worked. But I have trauma from all those years.
Yeah.
It's there's a better way. There's a better way. And I
Hmm.
try to help family units, you know, like I work with a lot of moms of addicts, and I'm like, listen, you're not dealing with your son anymore. You're dealing with a substance. So let's get rid this substance out and teach these life building skills, because getting sober has doesn't have crap to do with putting the drugs down. I said what I said.
Yeah.
When you sober up, you've got so much crap that has built up over the years that you've got to fix. You've got to relearn life. You got to put your coping mechanisms into, you got to learn them if you didn't have any. Getting sober doesn't have anything to do with putting the drugs down. That is the first smallest step. It is living without it for the rest of your life where the work comes in.
Where can people find you?
On Facebook and TikTok, I'm Nicole Victorious on TikTok. And Facebook and TikTok are my two main accounts. I'm not very big on Instagram.
Hmm. Thanks so much for joining me today, Nicole. It was a pleasure walking through your story with you. Very inspirational, very powerful. But that's it for today. So I will let you go. Thanks so much. Okay, if you got something out of that, please click that
Okay.
like button at the bottom of the screen. If you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. If if something resonated with you, I want to hear about it. If something rubbed you the wrong way, I want to hear about it. I'm all about fostering productive conversations about substance use, and I can't do it alone. That's all I got for you. Take care.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.